Bizarre because I thought we had it. Of course, certainly before the Super Over, we had done all the hard work, and although the day kept flip-flopping from team to team, England were ahead, New Zealand were ahead. It was so tightly contested, and I guess both teams were playing some amazing cricket at the time in front of a really cool crowd at of course, Lord's, the home. So it was a tough pill to swallow leading into the Super Over because I thought we'd had it won in the 50 overs.
So Lachlan Hammond Ferguson is joining us on today's episode of Nights Unplugged. Now that surely is a name for royalty. Is there something you're not telling us about your lineage?
Well, to be honest, the only time I ever hear that full name is when I'm in trouble when I was living at home. Dad used to yell out, "Lachlan Hammond Ferguson, take the rubbish out," or "do the dishes." So, sort of cotton on to Lockie, and very rarely do I get called Lachlan, but certainly when I'm in trouble, but hopefully not too much.
That one-day international that you played in Sydney, empty stands. We saw this funny incident where you had to run into the stands and fetch the ball. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, it always seems to be me in those situations where I somehow am the person that does the ridiculous thing, and then it goes throughout Twitter. But that was certainly a pretty bizarre experience, playing at such a great stadium with no one there. The security guards were facing the other way watching the game, so they were probably enjoying it. But certainly, I think Finchy it was who hit a big six over my head, and I had to chase it up into the stands and try and cut it off before it got to the bottom. But not normal. Happens a bit more in New Zealand than it probably does in India and Australia. But yeah, certainly I was laughing at some of the Twitter handles and Twitter jokes that were going around about me picking up the ball from the stands.
Talking about cricket, talking about your time with the Kolkata Knight Riders, it's a relationship that began in 2019. How excited were you for coming back to India and being with the Kolkata Knight Riders once again?
Oh, super excited. I think Kolkata, the team, sort of brought me in with open arms and made me feel as part of the family as any of the players, and certainly made some good friends last year amongst the team. And their mates you kind of take on outside of the game as well. But it was certainly a place, as a Kiwi, we watched the IPL as young chaps, and obviously Brendan, and I'm sure you'll ask about him later, but Baz was sort of one of our heroes growing up, and watching him do so well in the first match for Kolkata, it's hard not to be a Kolkata fan. Super excited. I think purple and gold's not a bad colour on me either. So still working. Obviously got the tracksuit on tonight. Super excited to come back, and the team we have is looking super strong. So I think last year perhaps didn't perform as well as we'd all hoped, and we still ended up sort of mid-table. So hopefully we get another chance to go this year.
Good looking tracksuit, I must say. But you are a member of the 150 plus club when it comes to pace. Where did this love for fast bowling begin? Was it because of you watching Shane Bond a lot, or is it something you just picked up?
Look, my brother was a very fast bowler, and he's 4 years older than me. So growing up, he was always much bigger, stronger, faster than me, and I guess I just wanted to be better than him for pretty much most of my life. And it was interesting, I was watching the Michael Jordan Netflix series, and Scottie Pippen actually talked about he was always just trying to be better than his brother. But at the same time, I think as you grow up, you sort of realise that you have skill in that area, and I loved playing sport, and cricket wasn't always my first choice, but I still loved absolutely playing it, and I guess I sort of found an avenue which I was talented at, and something that I could work at as well. And I didn't think I would ever be putting out speeds that I was, probably until I debuted for New Zealand. I still didn't really know. But yeah, it's exciting, certainly.
So you spoke of your brother, 4 years older than you, played professional cricket. Your father was a rugby player, mother was a sprinter. So it was always part of the plan, you being a professional athlete?
I'm not sure. I think my brother was probably the one who was far more talented than me, and he was probably on the fast track to being a professional athlete and had some injuries and struggles along the way. But our family is certainly a very competitive sports family, and not only in sports but in academia, and whatever we tried to do, our parents would make sure that we did our best. And certainly I don't think I'd be here and be the competitive character that I am without that sort of upbringing. So a lot of where I am has to do with that for sure. But I enjoyed it. My brother and I played sports against each other a lot. All my good friends growing up were all very competitive guys, and it's just how we grew up, playing all kinds of sports or making any kind of game competitive, whatever it might be. So I think that's sort of how it began.
And speaking of your childhood, the year was 2008, a fast bowling competition in New Zealand. You and Jimmy Neesham participated and you lost by a whisker. Tell us about that story.
God, this is just bringing up embarrassing moments for me, but nah. Jimmy, he was a year older than me at school, and I guess was a bit of a big brother for me because he was the reigning fast bowler in the team, and I was sort of the young pup trying to come through and be the quickest. And we had the fast bowling competition my second to last year of high school, and there were some other notable names in that group too. Bevan Small and Ben Wheeler, the other one, just slipped my mind. And it was one of those crazy situations where I entered the fast bowling competition, didn't think I would do any good, went down to Wellington, made the final 6, and we actually did it at lunchtime, I think, the final, during an English and New Zealand Black Caps test match. So we had a full crowd around us, and that was certainly my first experience of bowling in front of a crowd. And then I was winning up until Jimmy's last ball, and then he bowled a beamer. And as all fast bowlers know, that's cheating. It always comes out quicker. So put an asterisk next to his championship that year, but certainly pretty fond memory.
Jimmy Neesham was at 133 kilometers per hour and you were at 132. That's how close the margin was. But when you talk of injuries and fast bowlers are no strangers to each other, and you've also faced your fair share. In times like that, when you're recovering and you're in rehabilitation, what mindset do you have to have, or what motivates you to keep trudging on, keep carrying on?
It's a great question that I think fast bowlers get asked a lot. But the more I've talked to other athletes, certainly we have rugby players, the All Blacks here, who don't get the similar injuries to us, but they certainly have their fair share. And some players go through their career with pretty limited injuries. Some players are riddled. Some players, like Pat, sort of in the early starts of his career, he obviously was riddled pretty severely, and then now he's absolutely blossoming. So it's an interesting one where I guess for some people they get injuries, for some others they don't. And it's really hard to tell at a young age. But for me, the big one I had was just before our Under-19 World Cup. I got a stress fracture, and I was sort of in the wider group training, and obviously striving to make that team, and wasn't to be. And I guess at that time I sort of decided that I was close enough, and so it was worthwhile for me to keep working and put in the effort the next year or so to get myself back fit and take advice from doctors and physicians. And at the time I was 18, so I had absolutely no idea what kind of rehab program would look like or what I needed to do. So I was completely taking advice, whereas now as you play for I've been playing sort of 7 years professionally, you get a bit more of an idea of what's sore in your body and what's potentially dangerous, and more so how to prevent injuries going forward. But once again, Shane Bond's a classic one where he played a lot of cricket but just seemed to get injuries, and I really don't know how they can work out why that might be. It just happens to some players, but fortunately I've been okay, touch wood, at the moment. So look forward to some time at home and then build up the strength again to hopefully be out playing soon.
You spoke about making the team. 2016 was when you made your one-day international debut for New Zealand. Was being a black cap part of the plan or a dream of yours from childhood?
Yeah, look, I certainly watched the Black Caps and went to the Eden Park a lot to watch their games, and as a kid you dream of playing at Eden Park and playing for the Black Caps, but certainly my whole career really until maybe the later stages of playing for Auckland, I didn't think I was good enough or didn't think I had the talent or the ability, and whether that was because coaches told me I wasn't good enough or because I had a little bit of self-doubt, probably a combination of the both. But yeah, the Black Caps was sort of one of those dreams, and it's hard to forget my debut and against Australia at SCG, which certainly had more fans in the crowd than the last game we played, but yeah, didn't even finish my allotted set of 10 overs, which was pretty embarrassing in a way, so hard to forget.
And then cut to 2019, the ICC Men's World Cup. You were the most talked about bowler amongst the crop that was participating in the World Cup, and of course you were part of a side that had one of the most exciting campaigns in the tournament. How was your maiden World Cup experience?
Oh, fantastic, yeah. It's really hard to put into words because it was so long, but also it went by so quickly. Certainly coming from India right before it, and then going straight through to the World Cup straight after. Obviously completely different conditions back with the New Zealand side, and we were straight into it, sort of playing our first warm-up game against India, which was one of the favourites, so we were right up against it in our first warm-up game. But it was exciting. I think with the Black Cap side, I was more or less just trying to own the first change bowler role. The bowling attack in New Zealand, we have such fantastic opening bowlers, and the sort of spot to be an opening swing bowler was so highly contested that I sort of felt that my pace and bounce would be better suited to first change, and so certainly going into the World Cup I just wanted to put my best foot forward and hopefully be part of the starting side and try to cement my spot to play. But the way the boys played and the way we stuck together that whole tournament, it was obviously super pleasing and exciting to be part of a side that played very well, but also the way we conducted ourselves off the field and the way we stuck together throughout the whole campaign. It was truly a family, and certainly probably the best time I've ever had playing cricket for an extended period of time. And then, yeah, we were pipped at the end, but at the same time, it's just nice to be part of a side that's playing great cricket and playing in the right spirit. And I know you sort of mentioned that I picked up a few wickets in the tournament, but I've said it before and I'll happily say it again that I was the lucky one getting wickets off the back of a lot of hard work that our opening bowlers were doing. Matt, Trent, of course, Mitch Satner with the spin, and when guys are building pressure from both ends, then the pressure comes to a point where it cracks, and fortunately that I picked up those wickets. But yeah, it was certainly pleasing that the squad played so well.
There was also some advice that you received from your former Auckland coach Andre Adams. How useful did you think that advice was going into the World Cup?
You have to be a bit more specific. Andre talks a lot, so.
Okay, what did he tell you before you went to the World Cup?
Yeah, Andre and me talk a lot. He shaped me when he was my coach at Auckland in terms of the way a lot of people were, I guess, trying to encourage me to play a certain way, but Andre was pretty honest with me and understood me in the way I wanted to play cricket, and meant that I could find my own groove with how that was. And Andre and I talk a lot, but he was sort of just pretty positive in the sense that he was trying to allow me to play the game and create chances and understand that my role in the team wasn't to bowl dots, it was to take wickets, or it was to make batsmen feel uncomfortable, and whether that's from field settings or just from raw pace. But yeah, Andre certainly isn't one to not talk, so there's been plenty of advice coming from him.
And talking about the final of the World Cup, what did you make of the super over situation? What were some of the thoughts that were going through your head?
Bizarre, because I thought we had it. Of course, certainly before the super over, we had done all the hard work, and although the day kept flip-flopping from team to team, England were ahead, New Zealand were ahead. It was so tightly contested, and I guess both teams were playing some amazing cricket at the time in front of a really cool crowd at of course, Lords, the home. So it was a tough pill to swallow leading into the super over, because I thought we'd had it won in the 50 overs. But at the same time, I thoroughly backed us to win the super over, and once again we drew that. But obviously everyone knows that it got called back on boundary count, and by no means is that an excuse, and are we going to be upset about that, because that was the rules at the start of the competition. Not the ideal outcome, but someone had to win, someone had to lose, and unfortunately it was us. But England, were very gracious in their victory, and I've got a lot of good mates on that side, so it's exciting for them to get their first World Cup championship.
At any moment, did you think to yourself that you should have bowled that super over?
No. Don't get me wrong, if I'd been tossed the ball, then I would have loved to have bowled it and to potentially have been the person to win the game. But at the same time, Trent Boult in our team is one of the most professional humans I've ever come across, and the work that he puts in on the field, off the field, and his entire game is a testament to our whole bowling attack. And I think that he was going to get that over no matter what, and he'd been bowling exceptionally well in the death all competition, and it just wasn't meant to be. And obviously we know what happened in the 50th over, and it just wasn't meant to be that day, and I think that's all we can really put it down to. But no, Trent certainly got my vote of confidence, and the whole team's, and I'm sure the whole country. He's been bowling at the death, bowling under pressure situations, bowling the tough times for years, and he's always come up trumps, and so he was certainly the right choice at the time.
All right, and I think that all said and done, it gave us one of the best games of cricket that the world has ever seen, so we can only be thankful as fans. But talking about the most dynamic format, T20 cricket. Now, it's a format where batsmen come in and start hitting big right from the beginning, because it's ever changing. As a bowler, as somebody who hadn't played too much T20 cricket coming into the format, did you have to make any mindset changes, any training changes to adjust?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Just to sort of back the truck up a little bit, I was sort of picked for New Zealand off the back of my first class performances in Auckland, and therefore I hadn't played a lot of one-day cricket, and I hadn't played a huge amount of T20 cricket. Certainly not enough to have confidence in my skill set. I was reasonably raw and just tried to bowl fast, and as we all know, sometimes the faster you bowl, the quicker it goes to the boundary, particularly at Eden Gardens. But it's been a big learning curve, but something I'm constantly working at. Thankfully, the more I train, I guess the better I get, and that's sort of, I guess, the onus that I'm taking forward. And I sort of strive to take on those tougher situations now and try bowl at the death, backing my skill, backing the change-ups that I have. And certainly Eden Gardens isn't the easiest place to bowl. It's obviously a very high-scoring ground, which is great because we've got Dre Russ. And Morgs this year too, how good. But yeah, it's just a new challenge, and sometimes you just need to have perspective on what is a good score at that ground. And that's, I think, the fantastic part about T20 cricket is that because it is such fast pace, you need to adjust your mindset, adjust your approach, adjust your game plan for every game. And perhaps that's why people get so excited, because 1 or 2 overs can change a game, and it often does.
You spoke about growing up, how you were a fan of Brendan McCullum and the Kolkata Knight Riders. Growing up in New Zealand, what was it like being a KKR fan? Did you have to wake up early to watch a match? What went into being a KKR fan?
We did actually. Especially that first season when the news went ballistic about Baz sort of smashing it around, and we didn't really know at the time how big IPL potentially was at the time, of course, and how crazy it was in India and how big it might become. And I guess it's tough perhaps to imagine for Indians what it's like in New Zealand, where for our domestic games we might have sort of 2,000 people watching a game, and we think that that's a big crowd. And certainly for the Black Caps we might get 20,000, and we feel like that's a big crowd. And then my first experience going obviously with Pune the first year and playing in front of sold out crowds there, I just couldn't get over the noise that was coming and just the pure passion. So seeing it on TV is one thing, but being a part of the IPL and actually being at the game and then once again being on the field is a whole new ball game. But it's absolutely fantastic, and it's just great to be a part of a sport that has so many fans like that.
And also you're going to be working alongside Brendan McCullum at the Kolkata Knight Riders. Now, what are you most looking forward to when it comes to working with him?
Well, yeah, I think over my career I sort of just missed out on him being my captain. I was just after the World Cup in New Zealand here, so didn't play under him at any stage. I'd bowled him a few times in the nets, and that was sort of pretty much our extent. Over the years, we've obviously run into each other, and naturally as Kiwis are, we're always best of mates. So he's chatted to me over the time, seeing how I'm doing in quarantine, but we'll certainly get into the nets, hopefully at some point in time when we're allowed out of isolation. But no, really excited. Baz is one of those great New Zealanders where he played the game the way he thought that it should be played and the way he thought he was the best at playing, and he was always super aggressive, and I guess my game is sort of mirrored it in a way as a bowler, a little bit like that, and to take the aggressive option, and whatever happens, it surely will be exciting. So thoroughly looking forward to playing underneath him.
And there's another Kiwi in the mix. We have a brand new bowling coach this season. Kyle Mills is also from Auckland. Are you looking forward to learning some tricks of the trade from him as well?
Yeah, well, Millsy was, when I started out, as I was saying, a sort of young, chubby pup at Auckland. Millsy was very well established in the Black Caps and one of our greats already. So certainly I tried to rub shoulders with him as much as I could when he was back in Auckland and learn some tricks off him. And he has that kind of calm attitude where you can imagine when he was playing, even when the pressure came on, that he was pretty relaxed under that sort of situation. So I'm sure he's got plenty to teach in that sort of department. And of course he was one of the most accurate bowlers we've ever had. So I'll be interested to see what his thoughts are on how we approach playing at Eden Gardens, which is obviously a pretty high scoring ground, but I'm sure he has a wealth of knowledge that he can pass on.
And also in the nets is going to be Pat Cummins. How is that going to be? Are there going to be a lot of pace-offs at the Kolkata Knight Riders nets this season?
Yeah, pace-offs to each other perhaps. Yeah, we sort of have that. I don't know if you've heard about the fast bowling club, but you're always nice to the other guys who can bowl 150. But yeah, look, Pat's he's an exceptional player, and it's no secret he's sort of almost every year the bowler of the year, if not the player of the year internationally, and he seems to get better and better, and he's still so young as well. So thoroughly looking forward to rubbing shoulders with him. He's obviously a lovely guy, and that comes across really well on TV, but also very much so in person. So certainly an exciting addition to the team, and looking forward to getting amongst it.
And when you talk of T20 cricket, there is so much innovation that the batsmen have to bring in terms of their shot selection and how they play, because you have to maximize the number of runs that you put on the board in a short period of time. As a bowler, what variations, what preparation, what changes when you shift to T20 cricket to take on the innovation that the batsmen bring?
It's a great question, because I think as batters get more innovative and they get more skillful at hitting good balls, and almost now they're sort of setting up for Yorkers, and they seem to be able to hit that for six, or set up for slow balls, and they seem to be able to hit those quite well. So at the same time, bowlers need to adjust, and that's part of the challenge and part of the excitement of playing cricket. But certainly in my arsenal, I back my Yorker, back my slow ball, but I am working on some other variations and hopefully those can come into fruition when I get out on the park at some point in time. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting back into the nets and bowling again. My body will be, I'm sure, taking a bit of adjustment from doing not a lot of bowling to back into it. But yeah, no, looking forward to getting back into some training. It's been a nice little break, but I'm ready to play some cricket again.